So you've created a program, you've set it up properly, and now it's time to actually start designing and coding your program. Just the designing part for today, or for this lesson. So you should have your toolbox on the left. If you don't, just go to View and bring it back right here. Hopefully you do. The first tab, All Windows Forms. These are all the things you can add to your project, your program. So let's talk about a couple of them today. Let's talk first about a label. So a label, if you click and drag it, will allow you to put text on your program. Pretty much all of your programs will have some form of text. This is called a control. All of these are called controls. Everything in your toolbox is called a control. So this is a label control. Now, you'll notice you can click on your label. Do not double click it because that'll take you to your code. So if you happen to double click it, just go back to your design tab up here. We don't need to worry about coding just yet. So a single click will show you the properties of your control. See all of these beautiful properties? These are all the things you can change about it. Now, the most important thing to change is probably the name. So every control gets a name, and you'll notice by default it's called label 1. I do not want to see this. This is not a good name. We are going to call this LBL. So every time you add a label to your form, you're going to rename it to LBL, which is short for label. And then you're going to give it some descriptive word that further describes what this label's purpose is. So I'm going to say LBL title, because this label is going to act as the title of my program, of my project. Now, your first assignment is going to be doing with flipping cards. So another property of the label is the text property if you scroll all the way down. This lets you choose what you want the label to say. So I'm going to get this set up. I'm going to say press the buttons to flip the card, because this first assignment is going to do with flipping cards. And some other useful properties, you've got for color if you want to change the color of your label. A big one is the fonts. So if you go to font and press these ellipses, you can make your font bigger. You can change what font you're using, depending on which ones you have downloaded, just to kind of give your program a little bit more pizzazz, if that makes sense. So this is a label control, and these are the properties. Let's bring another popular control. Let's look through our toolbox, and let's bring in a picture box. So if you double click the picture box or you click and drag, just as the name implies, here's a box where you can put an image that you have downloaded. Now, I already downloaded the images off of Google. I'm assuming you would know how to save an image off of Google. Now, once you have a picture box, you can press this little arrow and you can choose the image you want to display. Now, of course, we have no images imported yet because we just created this project. So go ahead and click that import button. This will let you pick a image to display on your program, and I'm assuming yours will probably just be in your downloads. I downloaded mine to this folder, which is a little bit annoying. Yours will hopefully be easy to find in your downloads. Once you have the image selected, just press OK, and it might look a little funny. Pretty much every time it'll look funny. That's because these picture boxes have a size mode. Now, I recommend changing the size mode to zoom, and that way, no matter how big your picture box is, you can resize, and the image will try to, it'll contain the entire image. It won't cut off any pieces. So now we can freely make it bigger or smaller. So you'll want to find the back of a card. It doesn't matter. You can use a playing card. You can use a Pokemon card. I'm using a Yu-Gi-Oh card. It's your program. So you have creative freedom. I just need a picture of the back of some type of card. Now, just like a label, we changed the name. We also need to change the name of a picture box. So instead of picture box 1, I want PCB. That's the prefix for picture boxes. So every name should start with PCB. And now give it some further description. So I'm going to say PCB back because it's the back of my card. So when I'm writing code, this name will help me identify what it is that I'm working with or what it is that I'm changing. Once you have that, we can add another picture box, either by copying and pasting the first one or bringing in a second one. And we're going to choose another image. This time you're going to find a face of a card, so the other side of a card. So I've got my Yu-Gi-Oh cards here, so I've got the back of a Yu-Gi-Oh card and I've got the front of the Yu-Gi-Oh card, or the face of the Yu-Gi-Oh card. So once again, I'm going to change this picture box to PCB, and the other picture box was called PCB back. This one will be called PCB front. So I've got a label and I've got 2 picture boxes. And the last thing in our toolbox we'll talk about, the last control, as implied by our label, is a button. So at the very top, B for button, we're going to click and we're going to drag in a button. And I'm going to throw in 2 buttons. So I'm going to copy and paste another button, making them nice and sized. Doesn't have to be perfect. And clicking on the button shows me all of these properties. I want the text of the first button to say show front, or sorry, show back. And I want the text of the second one to say show front. Just like labels and picture boxes and any other controls, we need to name this button. So my show back button, instead of it being button 1, I need BTN. That's short for button. That's the button prefix. So I'm going to say BTN back with a nice capital B, because this is the button for the back of my card. On my second button, also BTN. Was it face or was it front? I've been using fronts. Okay, BTN front. And here you have some basic controls and experimenting with their properties, learning about the properties and all the things you can change about these controls. Now, just a side note, if you click on the background of your form, we already changed some of these properties about the form, right? Your form, the program itself has these properties. So maybe you would want to change the text of your form to say card flipper or card flip, because that's your first assignment. And maybe you can find a more suitable icon for this program, and hopefully you remember how to do that. So there you have it. Some basic controls and the importance of naming them using the appropriate prefixes, and some common properties that you may be messing around with and changing.